righty. Yeah. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. We're starting off with our morning cup of latte. The goodness that primes the pump. That's what we're doing this morning. Well, it is the 31st of December. We're coming up, and guess what? 2025 is almost gone. I'm here in Korea, so I'm a day ahead of most people in the United States, kind of doing that time traveling thing, and we're still here. So, yeah, just know the new year is coming, and if anything comes up where it's crazy a day in advance, I'll come back and let you know. Okay. Hey, we got George here. George pops in on the last day of December. Well, my last day of December. Other people, it might be the second to last day of December of 2025. Who would think that we would make it to 2026? That is kind of wild. So yeah. Oh, waking up. It is 5:46 in the morning. Man, I had some hard workouts and went to bed late last night and got up early, of course, and feeling it. So I decided today we're going to end up doing retired in Korea. We're going to talk about dog meat because some people know in Korea dog meat was a thing, and it still is a little bit. We're going to talk about a YouTuber that's causing a hubbub here in Korea and how people are like, oh, and I don't know. That's kind of an interesting take. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Scalding Wife. Remember in previous streams we talked about the Korean man who is married to a Thai person from Thailand, a lady. We think it's a lady. And with the scalding hot water, and there's a new twist on that. And it just begs the question, why? And how he could even come up with this defense, it wasn't me, is amazing. The other thing we're going to talk about, no more adoptions. Adoptions are bad. We're not going to do any more adoptions, and there's some history behind that as well. Oh my gosh, holy crow. Ooh, somebody's going to get in trouble. Then we're going to talk about the Coupang Crazy that is going on. That deals with Coupang, which is kind of like the Korean version of Amazon, even though it's a US-based company, and how they had a data leak of 33.7 million users' information, and they're going to compensate people. But not really. Yeah, it's all kinds of screwy. And then we're going to talk about a fake news bill that, I don't know, depending on who's in power, we can throw you in jail. I don't know. Does that sound fair and equitable? We'll get into all that. Yes, the joys of living in Korea. So, excuse me. Yeah, pardon me. And the other thing about Korea is got some bad air quality at certain times of the year. All that stuff comes from China and some other neighboring countries that burn trash and burn rice fields and all that stuff. And all that stuff just comes right into Korea, and it just wreaks havoc on you. George says, hot dog, diggity dog. And with that, let's go into our first topic, which is going to be dog meat. Yes, 80% of Korea's dog meat farms shut down ahead of the 2027 ban. This has been an ongoing thing. It rears its ugly head from time to time, but we're getting a ban on dog meat. The first time that I remember dog meat was coming over to Korea in the military in 1988, just prior to the 88 Olympics. Yeah, that was a minute, right? That was a little while ago. Just dated myself really, really big. But when we got here, again, the Korean people are great, work hard, respect, all of that stuff, but they kind of ate dogs. Yeah, and it was. I have had dog, and it's I don't know. It depends on how you cook it. You know, it's just kind of like any other meat almost. But you never know unless somebody told you. So, and there's only certain breeds of dog that they use for meat. So kind of like, you know, we have cows and goats and things like that, and bison or, you know, deer or whatever. You know, certain animals are deemed okay to eat. Here in Korea, certain breeds of dog were okay to eat, and then that's been kind of, especially prior to the Olympics. They're like, oh no no no, we can't do this. This is a crazy thing. Um, oh, we got MD Mir Diaf. MD comes on board, says hi, hello, howdy, good to see you. But yeah, just prior to the '88 Olympics, there was a big thing going on about dog meat farms and how it was poor. You know, we shouldn't be doing it as a developing country who's hosting the Olympics. There was a big thing going on about that. And this was before social media. So it's kind of like in newspapers. And, you know, I guess that was it. Totally awesome possum. Oh, we have jokes this morning. So the dog meat thing is, yeah, it all depends on how you cook it. I've had it a few times, and again, for me, meat is meat. It is what it is, and depending on the country that you're in, the culture and things like that, there are social and societal norms that are a little bit different and acceptable to some that might not be acceptable to others. So, and then there's the whole, well, I'm not going to eat dog because dogs look cute. You know, they're how they choose their meat is based on cuteness or the ability to wag a tail and fetch or things like that. Whereas cows, not so much. Chickens, they're kind of like dead, lifeless eyes, and yeah, it's okay. Wait, just cut the heads off. It's not a big deal. I remember going to slaughterhouses when I was a little kid, and yeah, got to see that up close and personal. And so, you know, animal death for me was in hunting and things like that. Animal death for me was seen as something that was normal. There's a cycle of life, you know, there's a hierarchy of, you know, this eats that, that eats this, and then this eats everything. Yeah, and then we get taken out by a parasite, you know, or cancer or something that we can't see. Just kind of funny, the cycle of life. But getting back to the dog meat thing, this is kind of an interesting old thing because, as I said, it's been going on for a long time, and they're finally going to ban it in 2027. And there it is. Dog looks out the cage as police officers block a dog farm protest demanding the government scrap plans to pass a bill to enforce a ban on the consumption of dog meat. Yeah, that doesn't fill you with a lot of joy, does it? It's just like, especially these days. George says, please tell me they mark it so people know what to look for. Like I said, there's certain breeds of dogs, but then they're like this dog, I'm just kind of amazed that's a dog for eating. MD says, I'd try anything, and if it's good, I'm down. So far, liver is the only thing I don't like. Yeah, ooh, liver and onions? Oh, I'm not a liver fan. Holy crow, I'm not a liver fan. Nearly 8 out of 10 dog meat farms in South Korea have shut down, the government showed, marking a sharp decline that sets a stage for a complete ban of dog meat consumption by 2027. Again, you think this would be something that would have happened a long time ago. It ends up that around 78% of the dog meat farms, 1,204 out of 1,537, had ceased operations as of December 21st. Closures follow the implementation of special law banning dog meat. And yeah, over half a dozen farms originally scheduled to close in 26 and 27 opted to shut down earlier than planned. It's interesting. And here's the part that gets interesting. Officials attribute the acceleration in closures to growing public support for the ban. Fido is, you know, shouldn't eat Fido. And financial incentives for early shutdowns and active encouragement from local governments. Yeah, so if you got to shut down, I mean, we're going to give you some money. If you shut down early, I'd be all for that. You know, I can understand that. Let's see. MD says, I'm in New Jersey, so I'm not sure if I ever had dog. If so, I didn't know it. Yeah, Depends, maybe. You know, like I said, I've had dog meat in the past, and you'd never know if nobody told you. They would never know. No one would ever know. Current closures suggest the government is on course to complete the phase out by 2027. The remaining farms to actively cooperate with the government's efforts. Yeah, I would close early if it was me and you were giving me money, but again, it's kind of like a thing where it's, yeah, you gotta stop that. Get with the times, and there's other things that you could end up growing. Go into cattle. Some other business. There's so many other things that you can do, but yeah, we see this change in the world, and we see the change in society, and how things that were once considered normal have now become verboten. And it's just kind of an interesting thing to see that, whether you're in the United States or some other country, and seeing how things progress. Excuse me. The cool thing is that the progress that I've seen goes back from 1988, and seeing, certain times you would get protests about dog meat and dog farmers and whatever. You plant a dog and you have puppies. It kind of rears its head every once in a while, but yeah, it's finally finishing up. So in 2027, next year, not next year, but the year after next, which is tomorrow, will be next year for me, and then 2027 is when you're gonna shut it down. So if you are a big fan of dog meat, better hurry up and get your eat on before 2027. February 2027 comes out. The other thing we're going to talk about today is YouTuber Flap rekindles debate about Korea's health insurance. This is going to be an interesting one because healthcare seems to be an interesting topic all around the world. And I can look at it from the United States because I'm from the United States. Oh, George has got a question. George says, I remember England had a thing a few years ago with horse meat. Did Korea have something similar? Horse meat. Horse meat. That is interesting. Does Korea have horse meat? Oh, they do. Korea has horse meat. No. It ends up, horse meat is primarily consumed on Jeju-do Island. That's the little island at the end of the southern peninsula. Korea is a peninsula, and right off that peninsula, across from Busan, or Busan, however you want to pronounce it, it ends up that horse meat is a thing. It is considered local delicacy with a history dating back centuries. High protein, low in fat, kind of like bison, I guess. And including sashimi, which is raw, sushi, galbi, braised ribs, shabu shabu. You can do all kinds of things with horse meat. 70% of the horse meat is produced and consumed on Jeju-do Island. And yeah, apparently that's a thing. Wow. Rich, sometimes slightly sweet or melon flavor. Wow. Heavily centered in Jeju-do. While it's not a staple in most Korean dishes, it's kind of a cultural thing on the island of Jeju-do. So, wow, interesting. Never had horse meat. I'm kind of I like horses. Rode horses when I was a kid and things like that. And I don't know, Lord of the Rings, and you see the horses, and any, Western shows, there's horses. I couldn't see eating a horse, but I mean, I could try it. But I don't know. We'll see. That's very, very interesting. MD, face blue smiling. Horse leather is a thing. Yeah, horse leather is a thing. And that's because I guess the leftover part from the horse. Yeah. When you eat the horse, you got to do something with the leather. You might as well make leather bags out of it or something. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. What is some of the weirdest things that I've eaten? I've had sea urchin, had rattlesnake, had dog, had whale meat. That was here in Korea. That was up northeast, and whale meat was horrible. oh my gosh, I don't see how anybody could eat that. That was, and Koreans were eating it up like crazy. But it's one of those things that it was like more for old people that I guess they developed a taste for it. I'm not into whale meat. After I tasted that, I was like, and that was super long time ago. But whale meat was just nasty. It was like, oh my gosh, I will never ever eat that again. And then it's just kind of for me, it was an ugly taste. And my wife didn't like it either, and she's like, oh hell no, never again. She tasted a little bit and then spit it out, and it was like yuck. I ate a few pieces because I thought maybe it's like durian. You know, you gotta acquire the taste. No, it just it didn't taste good. Didn't agree with my stomach. Whale is off the thing there. So yeah, let's see what else he goes. George says emu is very salty. Emu, wow, that's a big bird. Eating big bird, that's kind of rough. But with this, kind of, what did whale taste like? Whale was rough. It was, it was fatty, but it was just nasty. There's no other way to put it. It was unlike any other thing that I have ever eaten that was nasty, and it far surpassed it times 100. It was just like the nastiest meat I have ever had. And, thinking back, it's like, how do you describe, what was the taste like? It was really fatty. I mean, there was that, but the texture of the meat was just off. And then the taste was like, I don't know if they cooked it wrong, but I don't think they cooked it wrong, because we were at this stand, and it's kind of like an open air, kind of like food stall type thing out in the open. And, there was whale, and of course it's advertising. You had a bunch of Koreans there, older Koreans that are eating it. And so when we sat down, I was like, hey, let's try whale. My wife's like, what? And it's like, yeah, let's try it. Just see what happens. So Koreans were the older Koreans were amazed that I was there, and they were like, give me the thumbs up sign and all that. But it was nasty. It was really nasty. It was like, I think I was in the 90s. It was early 90s. It was just 92, something like that. It was just rough. I don't know. Nasty comes to word. I can't describe the actual taste because it was so nasty that nasty is the only word that comes into play. Like I said, I ended up getting, not only did I not like the taste, it wrecked my stomach for the rest of the night, and it was just like, oh, it was harsh. It was rough, I was like, for a while there, I was like, I need to go to the hospital. But yeah, that was a doozy. That was a doozy. MD pops up with, yeah, it was close. It was close. But yeah, talking about medical, one of the things that here in Korea is they have national health care. So national health care is kind of an interesting thing, because in the United States, healthcare in the United States is like the biggest, the best country in the world, and we struggle to have national health care for everybody. But yet it ends up there's like 32 countries around the world that have national health care, and it works out really well. It's not hard to do. And here in Korea, we have national health care. I'm here on a visa, and it ends up that being on a visa and staying here long term, I am eligible for Korean national health insurance, which comes out to about maybe 105, 110 bucks a month for me and my wife. Now, granted, Korea only has about 50 million people here. Everybody has national health care. So it's a thing. And it works. I'm surprised at how well it works. But then Korea also in their medical system, they have transparency. So if you get you get an IV bag put into your arm, a ringer lactate, and you get it in Seoul, and if you do that down south in Busan, or you get it in Jeju-do Island, or you do it in Chuncheon or whatever, that bag is going to cost the same. So there's a lot of transparency. In the United States, you can get charged $1,000 for a bag of Ringer lactate. And there used to be a time in the United States where there was no transparency in, your bill. It's like, nope, that's the bill. You're going to have to pay for it. And then they tried to get some more transparency. And it's like, wait a second, $1,000 for a bag of Ringer? No, I'm not going to pay that. And so it became a game in U.S. healthcare to where you could like basically negotiate down your bill. They would still make money. I'm all for people making money. Capitalism is good, competition is good, but when you're trying to, it got so out of hand, it went out of the realm of good and it got into the bad, to where you overcharge for medications, and the same medications that are wildly expensive in the United States are dirt cheap here in Korea and other countries. So yeah, I'm glad that the current administration in the United States, again, I'm an independent, but I like good ideas, and it doesn't matter which side they're on. But of kind of reining in the pharmaceutical companies and how much money they charge and how much hospitals charge and things like that. It's just gotten way out of hand. So national health care probably wouldn't work in the United States because the lobbyists are a problem. The other problem is corrupt politicians and hospitals and their lobbyists and so on and so forth. It's really rough. Hey, we got some other people. MD says about the whale. He says maybe they were trying to joke you and you did make it right. I don't know, maybe. Henry Parker, hey, comes onto the show, says, I'm not sure the generalization of national healthcare around the world is working well in other nations. I live in Germany, exploding costs, and therefore monthly payments are going up. That's true. I mean, payments will go up. That's kind of a fact of life, because as the cost of living, the cost of goods and services go up, because you have debt, you have interest, and all that stuff. Things go up over time. So there will be increases in those costs. But for example, here in Korea, those costs don't jump up at such a rate that it does in the United States. And the fact that the United States doesn't have national health care, just when like 32 other countries around the world, that's crazy. I just don't understand it. When I see how well the Korean healthcare system works, and at least, it gives good, efficient care, basic care and then some. Actually, I've had better care here in Korea than I have in the United States, which is way more expensive. But then Korea does a real good job of not price gouging, allowing pharmaceutical companies and hospitals to price gouge people. So they've got a tight rein on that. And I really appreciate that fact. When the closest we got to national health care wasn't even national in the United States, it was Obamacare. It was the Affordable Care Act, which was, if you read all the fine print, it was neither affordable in the end state, but nobody likes to read and see, what the small print says. And so when that came up, I read it, and it's like, ooh, this is going to explode later on. And the people that are going to be making tons of money, the insurance went up. 25 to 30 million people got health care. We got 350 million people in the United States. So it wasn't national health care. And then it ended up that when you look at the bill, you could just see between the lines that the pharmaceutical companies are going to make money. The corrupt politicians are going to make money. The lobbyists are going to make the politicians money. Hospitals are going to make money. And the people are going to be left holding the bag. And now it's like kicking the can down the road. It is the exact opposite of what they're doing here in Korea. So it's just really, Affordable Care Act is really bad. And it is the exact opposite on Korea. MD says, so awesome chatting with someone in Korea and Germany at the same time. I know, right? Isn't that cool? We've got another guy, Henry, that he just came back from vacation, and his family's in Germany, a guy named Ferithus. And so he just did the holidays over there. He's from Germany as well. He's living in the United States now. Henry, matter of fact, says national health care in the United States doesn't seem to work because Americans don't believe in the majority should be paying for the illness of people who are smokers or obese. No, you see that a lot on media, social media, but that's not really it. I mean, I'm of the I'm the same way. If I see somebody that's like smoking, drinking, alcohol like it's water every single day, start drinking at night and doesn't end until 10 at night, uh, you know, high functioning alcoholics, drug abusers, people that are as big as a house, you know, I, there needs to be some personal responsibility. And I feel that people like that, it's a disservice because you're wasting taxpayers' money because you put yourself in such a bad position. So for me, that comes down to personal accountability. If you don't have personal accountability, it is what it is. But the real cause, going back to what Henry popped up and says, that they don't have it in the United States, it doesn't seem to work because, people are smokers or obese or whatever, that's why it doesn't work. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work because of the way the medical system and the corrupt politicians have made the system. That's what's really wrong. And because as soon as hospitals and pharmaceutical companies start getting lobbyists and they start, paying corrupt politicians or making them corrupt by paying them through NGOs and so many other things, kickbacks and whatever, saying, hey, you need to pass this bill to increase the insurance rates. And if you increase the insurance rates, that means we can increase the cost of our goods and services. So the hospitals, the pharmaceutical companies, and, we just take it for granted in the United States. It's like pharmaceutical company says, oh, well, we've got this drug. It's going to treat, this disease or condition that you have. And we're going to charge this much money that is like obscene. And then, but in all other countries on the planet, its cost is way down here. Nobody checks. Nobody says, wait a second. You need to stop that. Because in all these other countries, you're charging like 7, 10, 12, 15 bucks for this exact same medication, made in the same factory. And in the United States, it could be $100, $200. That is the problem that we end up having. And so we have this system that won't allow to have national health care because there's too much money to be made. And who is, all those people are getting rich, and the American people are ending up, they're not getting health care. Yeah. After living in the United States and then being in Korea and all this stuff and being around for 59 years, that's what I end up seeing. The talking points of, oh, well, I shouldn't have to pay for people who are smokers or obese. That's just a social media thing. Hey, let's catch up on comments. We got Concept Gaming pops in, says, hey, it used to work here in New Zealand, but due to too much immigration and population growth, it started to fail. As they haven't been spending, get back up there. They haven't been spending the money on the infrastructure to keep up. And that's a good thing. That's a good point. If you have a plan and it's working, and all of a sudden you inundate a ton more people that use that and don't contribute back to that society, you're going to pay more, and people are just going to show up. And how these people are refugees or immigrants, and how, it seems like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and we're just going to let all these people in, and we have these blinders on saying, well, our social services are going to suffer. Our healthcare system is going to suffer. Because, when you have people that don't do anything and don't contribute to the welfare of the nation and be good citizens, it ends up, you're in the red. You're not in the black, you're in the red, and you keep going in the red. And, I don't think the people that want all these immigrants and refugees to come into the country are taking that into consideration. Now, am I against immigration? Absolutely not. We were immigrants. Me and my family were immigrants from Europe to the United States. And matter of fact, I got German ancestry. My dad's real last name was Mach, M-A-C-H, Mach, Robert Mach. And grandparents were German and all that stuff. So, I'm all for immigration if you're willing to renounce your old country and then become a citizen and assimilate into the country that you're going into. And that's not really what we're seeing today. Let's see, Concept Gaming also says these days the only way to get things sorted quickly is having private insurance. Otherwise, you're on a waiting list for over a year to get operations. And then the insurance companies, on top of that, their first reaction to filing a claim is nope, we're not going to pay for that. We've seen the videos of doctors and surgeons talking to insurance companies and reps and saying, hey, no, you need to have anesthesia for this procedure. And the insurance company's like, no, we're not going to do that. And it's like, well, who am I talking to? And so the whole insurance thing is wrong, and because it's based on profit. And there's nothing wrong with profit, but when that is the only thing that you do and you don't provide that good service, and you're saying, well, there's no way we're going to pay for that, but you're paying premiums every single month, and those premiums are insanely high, you can see that it's a profit-driven model, and we don't care about the people's health. So Korea doesn't do that. They actually rein all that stuff in, and they have affordable health care. Let's see. MD says, so glad I don't need insulin. Yeah. Well, that's one thing the current administration ended up doing is getting with Big Pharma and putting them in their place and lowering the price of insulin in the United States. So that's a good thing. And then Trump did that, and then there was also some Democrats that did that in their states. So again, it's a good thing. I'm all for good ideas. Henry says the system is rigged. Yes, in a way that is made to make profit. It's not supposed to be a service of the people. The bottom line is what drives the American dream. Agreed. But then Henry says, but we're talking about people's lives. We should have a system that puts a price tag on people's health. I don't believe so. Yeah, but that's always the case with insurance. That is always the case. And even in Korea, which has, I think, an excellent national healthcare system, there are limits to some things. You can't just go and say, hey, I want tested for everything and anything. You'd have to pay that out of pocket. But they will treat things that your problems that you're having. And even stuff that is catastrophic, like cancer and stuff like that, how they treat cancer is really good here in Korea. Whereas in the United States, cancer treatment ends up, it's like, that'll bankrupt you. Here in Korea, they flip the bill for that, for the most part. And it's so refreshing to see how a system can be so good at national health care. Granted, there's always room for improvement. But then you compare that to the United States and you're like, oh my gosh, this is ugly. It's like night and day. Let's see. But yeah, putting a price on people's lives, that's because it becomes a business. And, actually we've seen it where people don't get medical care because they're advanced in age. And screw quality of care. It's just you're not getting that procedure because you're old. Well, that would greatly increase the quality of care, which would increase the person's life and probably add more years to their life. But insurance companies are being the arbitrators of who lives and who dies in the United States, and where we don't see that much in Korea. George says, Canadian healthcare fell apart to the point that they sent a MAID kit to a disabled veteran that needed a stair lift. If you don't know what a MAID kit is, it's where you unalive yourself. And Canada has been known for, especially with veterans. I'm really surprised. It's like, well, you're having all these problems, maybe it'd be better just to go away permanently. It's as actual recommendations. So many people I know that were Canadian told me about stories about how they're trying to get MRIs, how they're trying to get x-rays, ultrasounds, and they had to wait 6 or 8 months. And, some of these people had cancer. And it's like, I have cancer. Should I really wait 6 to 8 months? So they dipped on down to the United States, paid a few $100s to get an x-ray or MRI or, that was a little bit more expensive, an ultrasound and whatever, and pay out of pocket to get those results, and then go back to Canada and try to get the care. There's a couple of people that I know that came to the United States to get surgeries because the time frame in which they could is just so far out, it was unbelievable. So, yeah. Henry says, yeah, double citizenship is problematic. You want to become an American? Sure. Learn the language, learn the customs, mindset, and believe in the Constitution, obey the laws. Yeah. And that should be whatever country you go to. If you go into a country and you immigrate into that country, you should assimilate into that country. we're here in Korea. We're here on a visa. I'm not doing a permanent residency thing, but we try to blend. My wife's Korean, so it's easy for her to blend into Korean. She reads, writes, and speaks. I can speak some Korean. I can stumble along, but at 6'2", 260 pounds, brown eyes, the facial features that I have scream, yeah, foreigner. I'll always be a foreigner. It's just, my wife and I have been married over 35 years. I will still be a foreigner. It doesn't bother me. But when you don't want to assimilate into the country and you cause problems, that becomes a problem. And that's kind of what we ended up seeing with this YouTuber, where he pops in and he rekindles this debate on Korean national health insurance. And this kind of goes into the thing of what Henry was saying. So you got this dude here, a screenshot of this Oliver Sam, in which a YouTuber comments his decision to leave the U.S. or leave the U.S. And he's come under fire for some Korean commentators over claims he plans to move to Korea to benefit from the country's public health system. A dispute that has fed into broader anxiety about long-term sustainability of national health insurance amid rapid aging. YouTuber known as Oliver Sam recently posted a video criticizing the U.S. healthcare system, hinting at the possibility of leaving the United States. Yeah, I've been doing that for a while. Except I'm here in Korea. I'm on a visa. Although the video did not mention Korea, speculation spread online that he might return because he worked in Korea as a teacher from 2010 before returning in 2018, and he married to a Korean national. I taught English at a university in Chuncheon for a while when I was in Korea before I got married, and then I got married and I'm here and I have different insurance, but some online commentators said accused him of seeking a free ride on Korea's healthcare system, prompting him to publicly deny that he decided to move to Korea. He said, "We only shared our situation and concerns about living in Texas. We did not mention Korea or decide where we would move." He added that groundless media coverage claiming that we decided to return to Korea has led to misunderstandings that we would get a free ride on Korea's medical system and waved a fuel of negative reactions. Yeah, we will give up for real. After 8 years of settling in the U.S. with a Korean wife, he criticized U.S. healthcare providers for charging high premiums while delivering low-quality services. Yeah, like we've been saying. Political debate on insurance and all this stuff. And so he's talking about all this, and then it's like, talks about the number of foreign nationals that committed insurance benefit fraud of 2.56 billion won, with more than 70% involving Chinese nationals. There's a lot of stuff in here, but the thing with this is that, they say that, this guy, he's going to end up, taking advantage of the Korean national health insurance. And as he's going to get a free ride. If whoever that politician was obviously showed his bias, and the fact that if you're here in Korea more than 90 days, you have to sign up for Korean national health insurance, which is about $105, $110 a month, just like everybody else. Korean citizens pay, and he would pay if he was here on a visa, a non-tourist visa. So how is he getting a free ride? Boggled me that, Mr. Politician. And then they throw in this thing about, he's talking about taking advantage of Korea, possibly taking advantage of Korean national healthcare system, health insurance, and he's going to get a free ride. No, he's not going to get a free ride, because if he's on a visa, non-tourist visa, he has to pay. That's all there is to it. And if you don't pay, there's consequences for that. So that's a non-issue. The other thing they try to imply is that, foreigner and medical insurance fraud and blah, 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 and all that. And it's like, that has nothing to do with this guy. That has nothing to do with me. That has nothing to do with the thousands of foreigners that live and work in Korea who are paying national health insurance or have their own health insurance. So yeah, this article is a little biased, but if put in that dig about Chinese, about the majority of people who are committing this fraud are Chinese, and there's a big thing here in Korea where the Chinese and the Koreans are going back and forth. It's not a real happy time between those two groups. Let's see. Let's catch up on some comments. Dun, 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 dun. Here, Henry says every citizen should be allowed to express who can enter their country. There are rules they have to obey. If you climb over a fence or think you're entitled to the same rights, you're wrong. Yeah, you know, just do it legally. That's all there is. And just because you're a refugee or an immigrant doesn't grant you automatic entry status into any country in the world. So you go to the Middle East and you kind of wonder why all of these refugees that are going to all these other countries, none of the Middle East countries will take those people. Wonder why. But that's another video. Concept Gaming says, yeah, the U.S. health system is bad, but the government loves is as many in power have fingers invested in the pies of pharmaceutical and big pharma and all that. Oh yeah. That's the whole thing. Henry says this kind of healthcare tourism or reasoning for a move to Korea has become more tense since allegedly many other older Chinese visa applicants present a burden on the Korean healthcare system. And there's that. And that's kind of the interesting thing is that when we applied for our visas here in Korea, they ask you, what is your current health? And if you're coming to Korea and say like, well, I've got all these horrible diseases that I have. It's debilitating. What the hell is that word? Debilitating. That's it. Debilitating diseases. And the only reason you come to Korea is obviously to get medical care through their healthcare system. But there's other requirements that you need to meet as well. So, like for me and my wife, we have to meet a certain income requirement that proves, we can stay in Korea. And so, but I think Henry's right on the part is that you have a bunch of people that are coming in for the sole purpose of getting benefits, school, medical, so on and so forth, and they're just not meeting it. They can't do it in their home country, but then they're going to come to Korea and try to do it here. And it's like, well, wait a second. It's that thin gray line that is drawn that it's like, well, countries need to make a decision on who comes in. And again, there is no guarantee. There is no right for you to go into a country and be accepted. That's up to the country to decide. But yeah, you can. There's a lot of people that become a burden, and there's a lot of insurance fraud when it comes to Chinese nationals and things like that. The immigration visa type used to be relatively cheap. Visas are still, I don't know, maybe in Germany, I'm not sure of the cost there, but here in Korea, immigration, and visas are not that bad. It's pretty inexpensive. Henry says the government changed that by now. Most visa types have become much more expensive. I don't know. For Korea, I'm not talking about Germany. Maybe in Germany they have become more expensive. Here in Korea, not so much. They're pretty good at keeping things on an even keel, not increasing things crazy. So, but then again, Korea also is clamping down on immigration and visas and overstays and immigration fraud, just like a lot of other countries. And I've called that out, years before. And we're seeing that with Thailand and Philippines and a number of other expat countries. They're tightening up. There's people who lived in Thailand for 10, 15, 20 years that, just doing tourist visas and doing border runs. And now they're saying, nope, that's it, you're done. And if you do two extensions and that's it, you're done. So you got people who basically lived a life in Thailand and then they went to Cambodia or some other place and they came back and then it's like, they're like, nope, you can't enter. It's like, but I got an apartment, I got stuff. And it's like, nope, you've been abusing the tourist visa to, in that gray area and we're closing those loopholes. So And Korea is enforcing immigration as well. They're doing a lot of stuff on, they're really promoting self-deportation and saying basically, hey, if you turn yourself in to get self-deported out of the country and you're here illegally, you won't be fined, you won't be punished, and so on and so forth. So they're trying to do the carrot, and then the stick comes later. But yeah, it is. It's pretty rough. It's going to get pretty rough, and it's going to continue that for a while. Dun, dun, dun. As far as healthcare tourism, I think there's a difference between healthcare tourism versus coming into a country on a visa to take advantage and be a burden. Too many people being a burden to the national healthcare system. Healthcare tourism is something where there's actually a visa for, if you come to Korea and get surgery or whatever, you can apply for a visa to get that stuff. Thailand has a lot of healthcare tourism, but that's a totally different thing than having somebody coming to Korea or some other country to just get healthcare because they can't get it in where they're at. And if you overburden it, let's say you got a ton of people that are like, oh, Korea treats cancer really well. Let's immigrate to Korea. You can't open the floodgates to everybody because, again, all of that could be an overburden on that. So, yeah. Henry says immigration visa type used to be relatively cheap, and the government changed that by now. Most visa types become much more expensive. Didn't they stop offering a retirement visa in Korea? Correct me if I'm misinformed. Korea is not a retirement-friendly destination like Thailand or Philippines or Portugal or a number of, Costa Rica, another, Brazil, South America, all these other countries. Korea never had a retirement visa with low income requirements. They're pretty much a homogenous society, and they do have a retirement visa, but you got to put I don't know, $500,000, maybe $250,000. You have to invest it into Korean company or infrastructure that has to have X amount of Korean employees or whatever. And that's not even counting, you got to have a buttload of money. So yeah, not a lot of people do that. It's not really a thing. So with Korea, they didn't really, they still have that on the books. I just don't know anybody that does that. The people like me who are retired in Korea are people that have ties to Korea through their spouse or, through work or something like that. Like for us, my wife has an F4 visa. She's a returning Korean national. She has Korean heritage. She's born and raised here in Korea. And then we got married. And then she became a U.S. citizen. And then with that, it ends up that, what are we doing? What are we doing? Craziness going on. Then she became a U.S. citizen, and then we found out that Korea offers an F4 visa that will allow her to stay in Korea under that visa, which was great. It was like, hey, we were going to retire overseas anyway. We just didn't know where. But when we found out we could do that here in Korea, that was awesome. I get my F1 visa that is tied to her F4 visa as a spouse of an F4 visa holder. So that works out great for me. And then we're legally here. We have to meet an income requirement and so on and so forth. There's also the health insurance requirement, either having Korean national health insurance or have our own insurance in lieu of, and meets the standards of the Korean national health insurance or more, or, goes above it. And we have that. So all of the things, and then background checks and all that stuff, all of that is covered. So we're good to go on that. But yeah, that's kind of how we retire in Korea, and a number of other veterans and people that are married to Korean spouses, how they stay in Korea and retire on the F4 and F1 visa. Other ones have an F6 visa, which isn't really a retirement visa, but it's kind of like an F1 for the spouse, for the foreign spouse, in the fact, but it gives you work rights. And then the other visa is the F513, where there's some higher income requirements, but basically you become a permanent citizen, a permanent resident of Korea. Hell, I think you can even vote. But you're afforded all the rights of a Korean citizen, and that turns out kind of interesting. But the income requirement's a little high on that. So yeah, and I wouldn't say that's if you don't speak Korean, you have to have twice the GNI of Korea, which is around $70,000 to $76,000 a year. That's where that comes into play. So, and it takes like 6 to 8 months, sometimes 9 months to get that F513 visa approved. So, yeah, it takes a minute. So that's why I say Korea is not really a retirement-friendly destination like other countries. Philippines, you can go there, you stay in the Philippines for a month or two, you can get your retirement visa, within a month or two, depending on your situation, where you submitted at, and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, that's what we got going on there. Since we're talking about international travels, let's go back and we're going to talk about the man accused of scalding his Thai wife denies the charges. It wasn't me. It wasn't me at all. And there's the poor lady. Oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for her. This lady, she ended up scalding case here in Korea, and there's some things that amaze me. So we're going to kind of redo this. Korean man who maintains he did not intend to pour boiling hot water on his wife's face. Yeah, wasn't me. It was an accident. He's placed under arrest with detention for special bodily injury on another. But the interesting thing is they don't tell you is that when this incident happened on December 3rd, they didn't arrest him. Yeah, they did not arrest him. No, they didn't arrest him. They had to submit to a judge to get an arrest warrant, and that wasn't served until like the 20th of December. And then when police were at the hospital and investigating all this, and he's like, "Oh, my bad, I'm sorry. Forgive me. My bad. It won't happen again." He tried to worm his way out of it and whatever. And she's like, no, she got second-degree burns on 40% of her body. Holy crow. And so now he's come up with the thing. He eventually did get arrested. But I'm just amazed that in such a case of domestic abuse that he wasn't immediately arrested like they do in the United States. Yeah, that was kind of odd. So he's placed under arrest now. And again, this happened on 3 December, inflicting second-degree burns on 40% of her body. And he said he wanted to make her ugly so she wouldn't be able to date other men. They're married. So I guess he didn't want her to cheat with other men, and he has real low self-esteem, and I don't know, maybe he doesn't treat her like a queen, whatever it is, and asked her to stay in a relationship in exchange for taking care of her. So it's not a normal marriage. They issued his arrest warrant, and he was held in custody for up to 10 days by police and up to 20 days by the prosecution. So we'll see how that goes. Despite the suspect's denial, we have transferred the case to the prosecutors, considering the method of the crime, scope of the damage, and the bodily injury. When this is kind of an interesting thing, because the police will investigate it. It could be a month or two or more, depending on the complexity of the case. But if it gets referred from the police to the prosecutors, that's a real good sign that, yeah, he's probably wrong. Now, the prosecutors are going to do their investigation. That could be 2 to 4 months or longer. I think this is pretty much cut and dried, based on her testimony, the damages, and so on and so forth. But if the prosecutor says, hey, we've got everything and it's going to court, and the prosecutor recommends that it goes to court, the conviction rate is like 98%. So, yeah, it's just absolutely crazy on how, yeah. But when we get to the part of where he talks about why he did this, she was discharged from the hospital. They got a stay of protection order. She's staying at a special place. She filed for divorce. So, yeah, it's just he wanted a girl and take care of him or whatever. Dun, 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 brutal attack. Seriously, dude. But his whole thing, when we talk about this dude, he gave a reason as to why, and Yeah, his reason was to make her ugly so other men wanted to date her. Well, she's your wife, so she should be dating anyway. So there's whole that weird dynamic thing. But the other weird thing is that he backpedaled and he said, "Oh, it was an accident. I tripped and fell, and the scalding hot water that I had in the pot, and she was either sleeping on the couch or in the bed. Why would you be walking with a scalding hot pot of water either to a couch or to a bed where she was sleeping and napping? Why would you be doing that anyway? It just doesn't make sense." But he said, "Oh, it was an accident. I didn't, I didn't do it. It was an accident. I just tripped when I was carrying a scalding pot of water, and it just so happened to all happen on her face." And the thing I said about, well, making her ugly to the police, I don't know what that wasn't real. That dude's an idiot. Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting thing. That is kind of an interesting one. Dun, 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 dun. Henry says, you can't escape the suspicion that an immediate arrest wasn't ordered because she's Thai and he's Korean. This happens all the time all over the world. The man claims it was just a misunderstanding. The problem is that, yeah, he admitted to it and he told the reason of why he did it, and then he backpedaled and said, "Hey, it was just a misunderstanding. I apologize. It's just, please just go on and do your business. It's just not a big thing." She's there in bandages, burns on 40% of her body. Absolutely insane. But yeah, the fact that he wasn't arrested immediately just boggles my mind. So yeah. Every country can improve on their policing. With that said, yeah, they're probably not going to be married. She is seeking divorce, and she's also seeking to sue him for compensation for the damages that she incurred. So this is going to be an ongoing thing. It's going to take a while. But with that, yeah, they're probably not going to stay together. I don't know. I just don't think the marriage is going to stick. No. But what can stick is if you smash that like button. I would really appreciate if you do that. It helps with the algorithm. Just kind of help me out. Help me out. That I would appreciate that. And if you could subscribe to the channel as well, that would be awesome as well. So, yeah, go ahead and take some time to do that. Appreciate that. Maker Viking pops up and says, "Hey, Baird Life and everyone else. Good. Maker Viking. Oh, Maker Viking. Have you seen, we're going to kind of go off script here. Not that I have a script. I just, check this out. Maker Viking, you got to check this out. This looks so cool. And boom, you can find this on Colts 3D. Check this out. Boom! Look at that. Headphone stand. Is that awesome? That is so cool. Headphone stand with the Viking skull with some runes, the beard, the mustache, the braids, the whole 9 yards. That is that is an awesome little thing that we got there. So check that out on Colts 3D, and you're gonna pay. You can pay. It's like 5,000. What is it? 5,000 and 5,035 won. Let's change that to dollars. US dollars. What does that come out to? $3.50. So, yeah, definitely check that out. I'm going to be printing that out later on because I got so much other stuff to print. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of interesting. But going back to the, going back to the idea of being married. And then usually when you get married, you have kids. Some people get married and they can't conceive, and so they adopt. And here in Korea, there's a number of people who have gotten adopted because they were abandoned children and so on and so forth. And people in America or other countries had adopted Korean babies. Well, it ends up, yeah, they're going to stop that. Excuse me. They're going to stop that. No more Korean adoptions, and there's a reason why for that. So Korea is going to end overseas adoptions by 2029. And yeah, there's little Lee Myung-ok, pictured as a baby, was adopted by a family in Norway. It's 72 at 6 months old. They're preparing to end overseas adoptions by 2029, shifting responsibility of adoption from private agencies to state in a move officials say is aimed at strengthening child protection, which I think is a good thing. And it's endorsed by the government, blah, blah, blah. The country once carried the shameful label of being an exporter of children. Under the new framework, the government will oversee the entire adoption process from placement decisions to post-adoption monitoring, the welfare ministry acting as the central authority. Overseas adoptions will only be allowed in exceptional cases with procedures handled directly through the coordination with foreign governments. So yeah, it's been going down, and it's going to go away by 2029. And part of the things is that what they found is, unfortunately, in Korea, like in the 90s and things like that, the 80s and 90s, what ended up happening was there was a lot of nefarious adoption things going on. There's a big stink about this, and it pops up every once in a while, but now it's popped up again, and it says that basically adoption agencies would steal babies, or babies were born and they would say, oh, the baby died, and the baby didn't die, and it ends up that it was sent out to be adopted. And so in other words, there was this thing, you have a product that people want, and they're going to pay a lot of money, and so you need to get more product, which means you need to find more babies, and there was a lot of lying. There's a lot of people who are adopted that were told, or on their official records, were like, oh, their parents died, they have no family, so they're orphans, and you can adopt them. And finding out that, lo and behold, there was lies told, and they actually did have living family. And it gets worse from there. So when you get into the 80s and especially into the early 90s, there was a big, big problem with foreign adoption of Koreans. And so it's kind of good that the government is stepping in to try to regulate this and eventually stop this ban, except in the, very, very special cases. Because they had so many problems. So I'm glad Korea is putting a halt to that. But could you imagine, I mean, coming to a place of where, hey, we have a baby, and it's like, oh no, the baby died, and boom, it's, oh, I'm so sad, I lost my baby. Yeah, it's very sad. So anyways, and then they take the baby and, they get paid to, for some overseas couple to adopt that Korean baby. And then later in life, these Koreans that were adopted by foreigners are finding out. It's like, hey, I want to find out more about my birth parents. I think everybody goes through that. They want to find out, what is my heritage? What is my culture? And so on and so forth. So they start doing digging, and they do 23andMe, and then, they do social media, and they find out, what? I have a sister? What? I do have a mother? What? I do have cousins and uncles in the whole 9 yards? And I thought I was an orphan. Yeah. Jarring. Very, very jarring. So yeah, there's a lot of nefarious activities going on. So I'm very glad that Korea is clamping down on that and ending that. And yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. Henry says, wasn't there a scandal that incentivized selling babies to foreign parents through agencies? Yeah, absolutely. There's that has come up. It was a thing. Says there are also a lot of heartbreaking stories coming to light of those who are adults now trying to find their biological parents. They uncover these horrific actions by these agencies. Yeah, unfortunately it happens. It is what it is. And George says that's just evil, because what you end up doing is you're making money off of human trafficking. That's what it comes down to. It's, you say, oh, it's adoption, we're providing a service, and no, it's human trafficking. I would say it's evil. I would say it's disgusting. Yeah, not really a good thing. So there's that. I'm kind of glad that there's not going to be any adoptions. And when you look at a bunch of people that were Koreans that were adopted as babies in the United States or other countries, and you hear their stories, and it's like, I didn't fit in as a kid. I was bullied because I had slanted eyes and black hair. I didn't look like all the other American kids. But now, of course, now being a Korean is more widely accepted, and you got K-pop and K-drama, and now all of a sudden being Korean is cool. So the younger generation is not having those problems like the older generation of adoptees, of to where you were seen as, oh, you must have been the baby of an incestuous relationship, or you were born out of wedlock. That was a huge thing in Korea. It was like, oh, Lord Bowden, get rid of the baby. You have to be married to have a baby. There's cases of that as well. But I'm really glad that Korea is clamping down on things like that. So yeah. George says my brother's adopted. He knows his birth parents. That's good. That's good. You should. You should. I knew my dad, and then my mom divorced him, and then I lost track of him for ages. And then I got a call from the district attorney of Colorado saying, hey, I need to show up to court because my biological father killed his wife and murdered her. Yeah, that was an awkward phone call. And I was like, what? And at that time, I was in the Army and I was in Korea. So he was like, yeah, we need to, we want to bring you in as a character witness and so on and so forth. He wasn't really a good guy. He had some issues. He was in the Vietnam War, and so he had PTSD, had a number of things. And at that time, there was no help like veterans get today. So he self-medicated and all that stuff, and anger issues and the PTSD. There was no outlet, no counseling. It was really bad. But he turned his life around. My dad turned his life around. And, I think I knew him until I was like 11 or 12. And then he ended up getting a couple of degrees. He worked overseas, and he came back to the United States. He's working like at a college and stuff. He really overcame a lot of stuff. Was quite a success story. And then he got into an argument with his wife at that time. And he unalived her, and he turned himself in. And he said, oh, well, I did do it, and then I didn't, and then all of that stuff. It was kind of a weird thing. And then he ended up getting to like 2009 years in prison. Yeah. At that time, Colorado didn't play no games. It was more conservative back then. And apparently her family was well-to-do, and so that resulted in a harsher prison sentence. And so, he passed. And but I wanted to come back because, like I said, the last time I saw him I was like 11 or 12 or whatever. And then I hadn't seen him for so long. And then after I retired, I joined the Army at 17. And then after I retired from the Army, I wanted to connect back with my birth father, my biological father. And that's when of course, obviously I knew that he was in prison, but I came back to the States, and I was like in the process of, I knew which prison he was at. I was starting to get the paperwork so that I could go visit him. I was going to contact him and do that, but he ended up passing away before I could do that. So, that was a little disconcerting. I really wish I had some better closure with that, but I just wanted him, and he was, at the time of growing up with him, he was a horrible human being. It just hands down. It's just God's honest truth. So much abuse I endured through his hand, drunk and PTSD and, things that were fault of his own and things that weren't. But I wanted to reconnect with him, and I wanted to show him and say, hey, I understand, because now that I have PTSD, it's like, okay, I get it. But I wanted to show him that I turned out okay, and that, I didn't hold that against him. And that's what I wanted to see him for. Unfortunately, he passed before I could get all that stuff done. And it was like, I just kind of hope in my heart, and at the time in my head, it was like, I hope he realized that, but nobody from the family talked about him, and it wasn't until later in life that I felt that I needed to reconnect with him and to say, hey, I get it. I understand what you went through. I'm kind of going through the same thing. The self-medication, the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD, and all that stuff, and the anger outbursts. I totally get it. Been there, done that. But I just wanted to kind of, I didn't want that to be hanging over his head of saying, hey, I really screwed up my kid's life, and I hope he doesn't hold that against me. And I wanted to be able to say, hey, yeah, I don't, because I get it. But yeah, never been able to do that. What the hell? That's crazy, man. Yeah, it is. But, life is crazy sometimes. Henry said, could I ask your opinion about why crime is so much lower in Korea than in the U.S.? Yeah. The societal norms are more conservative here in Korea for the society, and it's more of society as a whole. We're very individualistic in the United States, where there's more freedom, but we have freedom here in Korea, but there's not as much accountability. And then if you go back to the Korean War, it was 50 to 53 or whatever it was, it ends up that after the war, basically they outlawed guns. They thought, hey, there's a problem, and they just cut it off right there. And then the push from the Korean War, the country was devastated. It was totally wiped out. And so they took a militaristic view of, we need to rebuild Korea. We need to rebuild our families. We need to rebuild our businesses, our country. And so it was almost like a nationalistic view of saying, we are the Korean people and we're going to work. We're going to have good families. We're going to respect each other. We're going to have good work ethics. And we're not going to, kill each other. And then part of that is even prior to the Korean War, where you had the Japanese occupation, where they didn't allow certain weapons and things like that. So that was kind of instilled into Korea. But I think Koreans have more respect for their fellow Koreans and even people as a whole, that you don't have a lot of crime. And I really appreciate that. That falls in line with my morals and my standards and my beliefs. We'll walk by buildings and houses where they have, packages being delivered. It's rare that those things are stolen. I mean, there are porch pirates here in Korea, but it's nothing like the United States. And I think it's because of there is a strong family unity within Korea, and you have strong family values. You have marriage, you have the mom and the dad, the kids, you raise your kids right, you get a good education, the man works, provides for his family. There's a lot of conservative, traditional values as Korea as a whole, and with that comes, you don't hurt other people, you don't commit crime, you don't, and the government also had a strong influence in that, is that we're going to punish criminals. We're going to come against organized crime and those things. So I think all of those things combined together got us to a place here in Korea where crime is not as bad as it is in the United States. If you take guns away, it's like, ooh, we won't have any gun crime. In other places like the UK or Australia, you take away guns and yeah, your gun crime goes down almost to zero. But the people that commit crimes with guns are still committing crimes with guns. But then you have the knife crimes, the bat crimes, the brick crimes, the stone crimes, people beating people to death crimes. Those rise significantly more. So I think it's the attitude of people as a whole. And I think in the United States, we just kind of have this lackadaisical, I don't care, whatever. You have no respect for your fellow man or woman. And with that comes, I don't care about you. I'm going to rob you. I'm going to default you. I'm going to defraud you. I'm going to steal from you, whatever it is. And that, it's just ugly, unfortunately. And Korea has done a lot to combat against that. But basically it comes down that we respect ourselves. We teach respect for our family and our family members. And as Koreans, we respect other Koreans to not commit crimes. They still happen at times, but not, that's the best I can say. We've got Sparky pops up and says, hi, hey, good to see you there. Asia, like Korea and Hong Kong, is very safe and high trust. Yes, absolutely. We actually have stores in Korea where they're closed. There's no clerks or anything, but it's open to the public. So you go in like a convenience store. In our apartment complex downstairs, after I think midnight, I don't know, 4 in the morning or whatever it is, 5 in the morning or whatever, it's unmanned. And so you scan your driver's license or ID card, it unlocks the door. You're able to go in and you just pick whatever stuff you want and you scan it and then you pay and you walk out with your stuff and no one's there. There's a ton of places in the United States, there's no way you would be able to do that. That would be totally insane. But yeah, and the thing is, some people do steal. We talked about this on previous streams where Koreans have stolen from these unmanned stores, but you have to scan your ID card to get in. So they know who stole what, and they can contact you, and you can get in trouble, and you can get charged, and so on and so forth. But the fact that people are so trusting to do the right thing, that you can have an unmanned store and it survive, is really, really good. Whereas in the United States, there's places in the United States, if you look at Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Detroit, places in Denver, a number of other places, Seattle, Washington, whatever, a ton of different places, Atlanta. If you put a store like that, it would be it would be empty in a heartbeat because no one's there. Hell, we even have stores that have people in the stores working with security guards, and we have mobs of people coming into those stores and ripping off, mobs going in and just ripping off tons of stuff. And, they don't care. They have no respect for themselves. They don't have respect for the rights of other people. And that is kind of the problem that we're seeing in a lot of those cities and in towns that I mentioned. People don't have respect. And I think that's huge. Korea and Japan and other Asian countries, they do a real good job of teaching, being polite and having respect and, doing the right thing, developing the character of the individual at a young age. Whereas in the United States, that doesn't happen. Jamie Rose says, homogenous society is key to harmony. We know this. It can be, yeah, absolutely. It depends if that society has those societal norms of respect. And, hey, I'm not going to infringe upon the rights of other people or other citizens. I'm not going to steal from them. I'm not going to hurt them. I'm not going to, do those things. Because I don't want them done to me. And we, as a people, that's how we are. Japan is like that as well. Just very, very low crime. And I kind of see some similarities between Korea, Japan, and other countries that have very low crime, is that the people have respect for each other. They care about each other. And even if it's like, I don't really care about the other person, it's not like I have a heart full of love for my fellow man. No, it's not that. But I think it's like they care enough that I'm not going to jeopardize my freedom and put my freedom in jeopardy by stealing or hurting somebody else. And I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. So, yeah, that's how we operate. But yeah, I've never felt unsafe in Korea. Neither of us have ever felt unsafe in Korea. So I appreciate that. And while I do miss shooting my guns, I used to have guns, it's kind of a compromise that I have to do. So instead of shooting guns, I do 3D printing and painting and these videos, going to the gym and, doing all that stuff. So, but yeah, it all depends on the society and what they teach their citizens. If you don't teach your citizens how to be polite and respectful and have good morals, strong work ethic, then your citizens are not going to have those things, and your society is going to decline in those areas, and you're going to have high crime, you're going to have drug use, you're going to have all the crazy stuff that we see in the United States and other countries. Caveat, default, disclaimer, there's crazy everywhere. There's crime everywhere, but some places it's just not as much as others. But yeah, I appreciate Korea having a low crime rate. Next thing we're going to talk about, going from that, is, this Coupang thing. I know this is an abrupt change. We went from crime, and well, it kind of goes into crime because what this company did, Coupang, ended up kind of breaking the laws a little bit. They kind of fudged some stuff, and they got in trouble, and they're offering some compensation. For those of you who don't know, Coupang is an American company where the CEO is Korean. He's an American, Korean American, and it's kind of like Amazon. So Coupang is kind of like Amazon. They have the widest selection of products here in Korea that you can order online and get them delivered. You could order some stuff at 11 o'clock at night, like groceries, and they will be delivered at 7 o'clock in the morning the next day. Just great service, the whole 9 yards. But they had a data leak. And unfortunately, it was 33.7 million people's information got leaked to China by a Chinese employee for Coupang who quit and went to China, and then all of a sudden there's all these problems. The problem is that Coupang ended up saying, oh, it's an exposure, it's a data exposure, it's not a data leak. And there's some SEC, Security and Exchange Commission, because they are a public company. And so they have some requirements that if you have something like this happen on such a massive scale, almost 34 million people's information went out into nefarious parts of the world and compromised. The company Coupang ended up trying to downplay it and say, no, it wasn't a leak. It was an exposure. Kind of like, oops, there's an exposure, whereas the leak is like you're just throwing it all out there, and it was thrown all out there. They tried to downplay it, so that's a problem right there. They're being investigated by the SEC, and in the United States, there's going to be a class action lawsuit because of what happened, and so now Coupang is in reactionary mode. The problem is we got emails and we got communications from the CEO, Kim, telling department heads, yeah, don't tell me about that stuff. I don't want to talk to you. And this is in relation or in regards to security concerns. They don't spend as much money on, safeguarding people's information like other companies do. It's far less. So, and they're like, hey, we need to spend some money because this can be a problem in the future. And obviously it was. And then allowing one employee to have access to all that information. And then I guess they didn't backtrack or check. Usually when an employee leaves, you disable their email, you disable all of the access, you change passwords to, customer information, so on and so forth. Apparently Coupang didn't do that. They didn't have the policies in place. So it ended up being very, very problematic. Oh, I heard some beeping going on. Okay. I don't know. I think we're still doing good. I still got my mic on? Yep, still got it. So anyway, it ends up that, they got caught with their pants down. And then Coupang has been, problems with Coupang have gone back all the way. I found information back in 2016. Horrible work conditions, people dying, over 27 or 29 people died while working in such horrible work conditions at Coupang and so on and so forth. And delivery drivers, there's just not, you just work them to death, basically. And then they downplayed that as well. They also lied about a number of other things. So now Coupang is the whole thing of Coupang is saying, hey, we investigated and we talked to the former employee and he was scared. Grant, he was scared because we're Coupang, and he said that he did indeed steal the information, but he gave us everything back, and he deleted everything, and so we're all good. We're good. There's no harm, no foul. We investigated ourselves, and we found ourselves we're good. And it's like, what? You've got a history of lying numerous times in the past. How can we believe you? And then the Coupang says, well, we've been working with the Korean government. It's like, did the Korean government and the Korean investigators verify that this information is true? Or could it be that you paid this ex-Chinese worker to make a false statement so that way you could kind of gloss over this. Nobody would do that, would they? So Coupang is in a really bad problem. They're a major business here in Korea. Not only do regular people use it, but Korean businesses use it, and so it is taking a huge hit. It is really bad. And now Coupang is saying, hey, well, they're trying to be proactive and saying, we're offering compensation. I got this on my Korean newsfeed, and I was like, compensation? I have Coupang, my wife has Coupang, we can get some compensation, make things right, because that's what compensation is, right? You're going to get some money, and for a wrong or a damage that occurred, that's the definition of compensation. So when I saw the article that said, hey, you're getting 50,000 won, Coupang to give data leak victims 50,000 won, but there's a catch, and I was like, there's always a catch, especially if it's with Coupang. It's always a catch. There it is, yeah. Delivery trucks, night and day, driving all over the place. The company will issue 50,000 won each for the 33.7 million users affected by the massive data leak embattled in the e-commerce company. So $35 a person times 33.7. Coupang announced a 1.7 trillion won plan as a response to the leak. Again, the thing that they said wasn't a leak that later found out that, yeah, it actually was, and then they actually knew it was a leak and they tried to hide it. Now it's a leak. Okay, just kind of put it into perspective there. So it goes on. Members, general users, and those who have withdrawn their membership will all receive payouts. Receive payouts. Okay, a lot of people have quit Coupang. The 50,000 won will not be paid in cash, but as coupons. $5,000 given to use on Coupang, 5,000 won for Coupang Eats delivery, 20,000 won for Coupang travel, and 20,000 won for luxury items. So you're going to receive a payout, but it's not a payout, it's a coupon for Coupang. The problem with this is 5,000 won is like $3.50. But to get that, I have to spend money to get that discount. Problem is, a lot of people don't use Coupang Travel. A lot of people don't use the luxury to get 20,000 won. Whatever that comes out to be. And, Coupang Eats and the delivery service, you get $3.50 off. But it still requires me to have an account with Coupang and order something in order to get that discount. And oh, by the way, Coupang gives discounts from time to time to try to entice people to the different things, like if you don't do luxury or travel and they're having low engagement with that, they'll send out coupons so that you will do that throughout the year. So is really giving a coupon a compensation? And again, the definition of compensation is money. You're getting, a payout, money for the wrong or the damages or the loss that incurred. Well, how is somebody who said, hey, my personal information is valuable to me, and when that happened and you all lied about it, I quit and canceled my coupon, and now I'm compensation? Yay! But that means you have to open an account and buy stuff with Coupang. So is that really compensation? No. Coupang is trying to saying, oh, this is 1.7 trillion won. Look at how much, it's like $1 billion or whatever it ends up being. I think it talks about it there. They're like, oh, we're paying all this money to make this right, and we're, trying to get people back. But the problem is you're not. You have to spend money on Coupang that you'll probably get a coupon later on sometime during the year for these exact same things, regardless of. So Coupang is banking and saying, hey, we're pretty sure that the majority of people are not going to use all of these coupons. 5,000 won for e-commerce, ordering stuff online. We'll just give them 5,000 won because that's their biggest seller. That's the biggest service that they have. The next one is Uber Eats. So that's why that is only like $3.50 is because, it's a delivery service for you order food, kind of like Uber Eats. Somebody delivers it, you get a coupon, boom, you're good to go. But you can still get those coupons throughout the year. The reason it's 20,000 won for the travel plan is because a lot of people don't use that service. And again, you have to buy a vacation that is going to be a ton of money to get 20,000 won. What is 20,000 won? 20,000 won divided by, it's like 14.50 is the exchange rate now. It's $13, maybe $14. So you got to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on a travel or luxury item just to get $14 back. That's not compensation. And with coupons saying, oh, look at, we're spending $1 billion, to recompense, all of the users, the 33.7 million users, and we're making this right. We're the good guys here. We investigated, we did our own investigation, and the guy was scared, and everything's good, and he deleted everything, as if you can trust somebody who stole all of that information, which is, I'm not saying it's causal, but once this happened, and after a short period after that, phishing and digital scandals have exploded here in Korea. But apparently, according to Coupang, that never happened. That's not due to the leak of information of almost 34 million people's accounts. No, that's not why you see that uptick in phishing and all that stuff. No, absolutely not. Let's see, it ends up, we got some other countries. U.S. military has some experience with traders of Chinese descent. Yeah. That's happened. You have to keep an eye on Chinese immigrants like Russians, whether it's in sensitive areas or the military companies. We've kind of seen that, especially with China. There's no shortage of operatives who are in the United States or other countries that are gathering intel and information and doing nefarious things. That's just kind of a fact of life. And all of those things being reported back to the CCP. Chinese companies have been known to, if the Chinese government says, hey, we want all the user information of this company, they get it. It's happened in the past. But according to Coupang, we're all good. It's all good in the hood. And here's the thing is that Park says, $35, that would be over $1 billion USD. Of course, they want them to spend it in their own store. And it's a coupon. It's not compensation. And they know that the majority of people are not going, it's not going to be $1 billion. Because the people that quit Coupang are not going to be able to get that compensation because they closed their accounts. That would require them to come back, spend money to get those coupons and get that money. So Coupang has redefined the word compensation. It's just absolutely crazy. Concept Gaming pops up and says, all systems these days are just collecting data to target market for all your purchasing, right down to the stupid discount cards. Absolutely. Henry says, Evil Corp doing Evil Corp things. Yep. That's the way it goes sometimes. So Coupang has really got to a place of where they're trying to say, look, we're spending $1 billion to make this right because we care for you. Our hearts, our minds, our love is for you. And that's why we're giving you coupons. And if you quit, you got to join back up and you got to buy stuff. So really, are you really spending $1 billion? No. Are you really? Because you're going to give these coupons out throughout the year anyway for different promotions and areas that need more engagement so that you can make more money. So you're going to do it later on in the year anyway. So it's no big loss. They're going to do it anyway, sometime during this next year. So they're not spending $1 billion. They're really not. So, it ends up, it's this whole big thing that pops up and critics say the benefits are tied to lesser used services. Yep. Limiting plans, real value for customers. And $1.2 billion compensation package worth roughly 10% of its quarterly sales in an effort to restore customer trust. But it's in vouchers. It's in coupons. We talked about that. And a lot of people use the food delivery. A lot of people use the 5,000 won for commerce sales, online buying. And that's why that amount is so low. Because too many people use that. The 20,000 won for the travel and the luxury platform, not as many people use that. So there's, again, you have to spend a ton of money to get that $13 or $14. They reported 12.8 trillion won in revenue and 224.5 billion won in operating profit in the third quarter. Harold Rogers, the interim CEO of Coupang, which is dumb as a bag of hammers when he came to Korea and sat there because the real CEO refused to go to Korea to the congressional hearings, which was kind of problematic because when you had problems with Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg showed up in Korea. He was like, okay, yeah. He dropped everything and showed up in Korea and answered questions. Jeff Bezos, when Amazon had some problems in Korea, was like, hey, you need to come, you need to answer some questions. This is some serious shit we got going on. He shows up. Kim Bok said, nope, I'm an international businessman. I don't have time for that shit. So you can see there's a lot of Koreans that don't appreciate him. They really don't like him at all. And of course, Harold says the new CEO, who's been like a CEO for a week, he's the sacrificial lamb who says, oh, we're going to become a responsible company that customers can trust. No, offering compensation. No. Drew sharp criticism from the Korean National Council of Consumer Organizations, which said it's a superficial gesture aimed at easing public backlash than offering meaningful redress. It's kind of crazy. You had the group argued that providing uniform vouchers that affected all users could be used as a legal shield in future disputes rather than a genuine compensation. And again, it doesn't fall under the definition of compensation. It noted in the past large-scale data breaches involving telecom and credit card firms and other businesses involving payouts usually range from 100 to 300,000 won. So, yeah, Coupang is trying to go cheap. They're doing everything in their power to do it as cheap as possible and spin this like, oh, we care for you. Here's a coupon. But you got to spend money to get the coupon. And if you left Coupang, you got to come back and open an account and spend money to get the coupon at Coupang. Yeah, this is absolutely crazy. And they also said that it's structuring this compensation, saying it functions as a marketing tool towards services or goods that aren't. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're advertising. They're pushing this to make money. It's not compensation. The group said the plan effectively pushes customers to spend more on Coupang's platforms rather than providing substantial restitution for the breach. So they're not paying restitution. It's not compensation. It's a marketing ploy, an evil marketing ploy to make them not the victim while being the bad guy. But they don't want to be the bad guy. But everybody can see that they're being the bad guy by offering coupons and redefining the word compensation. The compensation came a day after founder and board chair Bom Kim issued a first apology since the data breach. The first time. So we've got emails, we've got communications from Kim to section heads and so this, and where he's like, I don't want to hear it. Nope, we're not going to do this. This is Bob. Don't talk to me about this. He's refusing to talk about it with his own section heads in his own company. And yet suddenly, now it's the first apology. This is glaringly wrong. And it just shows how messed up how much of a jackwagon this guy is, Bom Kim. It ends up, with other companies, when they have problems or they have issues, immediately the companies are like, we are so sorry. We didn't, this data breach or whatever this ended up having or the late delivery, oh, we apologize. They are on it like white on rice. And, it's a thing. What those companies do is respectable. what Bum Kim is doing with Coupang is not respectable, because he's just now apologizing for the first time. Because, no, it wasn't a data leak, it was an exposure. No, it wasn't this, it was this. And then it was silence. And then it was like, people are like, no, this is a serious thing here. No, I don't have time to do that. It's absolutely crazy. And then now we have the Coupang thing. Kim, who holds the majority of voting rights of the New York-listed Coupang Inc., which wholly owns Korea Coupang, acknowledged that the lack of clear communication and early responses brought disappointment to customers affected by the personal information leak. Yes, it was a lack of clear communication. It wasn't that I'm a horrible human being who's focused on making as much money as humanly possible. He's basically the Jake Paul of international commerce and online purchasing. The Logan brothers. Didn't that one Logan brother, he just fought some guy and it broke his jaw in two places? Yeah. The Logan brothers are just horrible. Jake Paul and Logan Paul, those are horrible people, in my opinion. But yeah, they're trying to say, it came out. So now he apologizes nearly a month after the incident. When you compare that to other Korean companies or other foreign companies, they come out and they say, boom, we apologize. It was our fault. We're sorry. But now we got to wait a month. And this is the first time where he's like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Apparently, all of the things where he tried to say, well, it's not our fault. It's not my, it's a leak. It's not a leak. It's a breach. It's this or that. And don't talk to me about this. Now his feet are being held to the fire. So now he's doing damage control and saying, I apologize. It's just a lack of communication. That's what it was. It was a lack of communication. Yeah, it's a thing. We just got some wires crossed. That's all it was. We made it right. I'm fully expecting that we will see Coupang being caught with her pants down even further, and that, the Chinese guy that stole all the information, we're going to find out that Coupang, I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to look into my crystal ball, and I think we're going to see information, in my opinion, again, just my opinion, of how we'll probably see that, yeah, that was wrong. And that was a lie as well. What do you think? Big corporation, concerned about money, doing everything in their absolute power to not accept accountability. And we're not going to apologize until we absolutely have to. And we're not apologizing because it was wrong. We're apologizing because we got caught doing wrong and lying about it multiple times. And even then, we're going to say, we're going to spend $1 billion recompensing all of the people affected. But you have to buy shit from my platform. You have to rejoin. Come on. Do you think we're idiots? Bum Kim, do you think we are idiots? Crazy. And Coupang did their own investigation, which is an interesting thing. It's kind of like having somebody who stole something investigating themselves and saying, "Hey, no, everything's good." The drug addict. Investigate yourself to see if you did drugs and if you did anything. No, I didn't do anything wrong at all. It's like, that's what we end up seeing. This Coupang thing is just crazy. They say that the data leak suspect identified and no external leak was found. Absolutely. We can trust the word of a former employee that stole 33.7 million user information, and we can trust him because he said, hey, I didn't do anything with it. I don't know if you know this or not. I worked in prisons for over 11 years. And the one thing that I know for certain, criminals lie. Hands down, they all do. And something on that magnitude of something like this, it's not like, hey, I'm a little bored, and you know what, I'm going to steal this pen from work, and I'm going to take it home, and I'm going to use it, or I'm going to take a ream of paper from my employer, and I'm going to use it for my own personal use. No, this was the personal and sensitive information of almost 34 million people. But no, I didn't do anything with it. I stole it, but I didn't do anything with it. And that's what Coupang wants you to believe, because they investigated and said, thus it is so. Yeah, they recovered all the devices, adding that all storage data had been deleted, no information had been leaked to third parties. It's like the most unbelievably clean story. It's like, no, nothing went anywhere, did anything, didn't hurt anybody. The dude has apologized. He's sorry. We have all the equipment. We got the computers, the hard drives, we got all of that, and we looked, and there's nothing on there. How do we know that was even his computer? I mean, it wouldn't be a far stretch of imagination. I've seen things in my time in the military and in prisons where things go wrong and people, no, it wasn't us. It was, we're squeaky clean. And then it's like, let's make up information and make up lies. And yeah, they'll believe it. No one's going to know. Yes, they're going to know. No one will ever know. Oh, they'll know. Yeah, they'll know. Yeah, the statement said forensic investigations found the former employee accessed data tied to 33 million accounts, stolen security keys, but the information stored from only about 3,000 accounts. Come on. Includes names, email addresses, phone numbers, addresses, limited order information, and building entrance codes to 2,609 accounts. So we're talking about apartment complexes here in Korea where you need a code to get into the apartments, not into the unit itself, but into like common areas, places where the elevators are at. That's sensitive information. And it's only 2,609. Yeah, it wasn't the 33 million. Of course not. And we can believe Coupang, can't we? Coupang added that no payment details, login credentials, or personal customs clearance codes were accessed. Right. Yeah, right. We can believe you in your own internal investigation that was verified by absolutely no disinterested party. And we can trust you because of all the lies you've told in the past. Yeah, that's not how this worked. The company recovered and secured all devices, hard drives involved in the unauthorized access and extraction of customer data in accordance with verified procedures. Well, your verified procedures didn't work because he was able to get that information and take it from you. Adding that no customer information was transmitted to third parties. I call BS on that. I totally call BS. Coupang said it utilized digital fingerprints and other forensic evidence to identify the individual, the former employee. The suspect later confessed, providing a detailed account of how the breach occurred. The individual said they became highly distressed after media reports of the incident and deleted all stored customer information. What are the odds of that happening? It's like he's an angel. Bullshit. Right. According to the company, it submitted relevant materials to the government authorities. When anything can be copied, anything can be manufactured, and you can make a laptop look like what it says that you said. But I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. And the fact that their Coupang ended up getting the statement from the perpetrator, from the guy who stole the information, and they just, he said he deleted it. So we're all good. We're good. Oh, by the way, we're going to reckon. See, and here's the other problem with this. If that was the case, then why are you trying to recompense and do compensation for people? If there's no harm, no foul. So why are you spending $1 billion giving coupons as compensation, which isn't compensation? We already talked about that. See, there's conflicting information here. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I'm just a dumb ex-Army guy. It remains unclear why Coupang, rather than the police, was responsible for obtaining the individual's testimony. Yeah, you need to look at this. This is what it actually says. Because why wasn't the police involved? Oh, we got it. It's not like we're not going to cover up like we did in the past when we lied. No, we've turned over a whole new leaf. We have had a come to Jesus meeting, and we are now holy and righteous, and we investigate ourselves, and we would not have any bias whatsoever. Yeah, absolute bullshit. Yeah. Findings to date align with the employee statements with no contradictory evidence identified, said the company. What are the odds? This is like the cleanest rip-off in history, where nobody's reputation, there was no damage, no nothing, no loss. It's all good in the hood. And the first time ever in the history of the world, they said they apologize, and it's we have serious concerns that caused our customers. We're concerned. Our heartfelt apologies, and we'll continue to provide updates as the investigation progresses. The thing is that this investigation went at such warp speed, they must have had a time machine. Because to get everything in the short amount of time that they did, I would say is nigh impossible, highly improbable. And then when you look at their pattern of behavior in the past, it's like, yeah, it is. And even the Ministry of Science has pushed back against Coupang's claim, saying it's unilateral. No, even they say that there's something wrong. According to the ministry, Coupang publicly disclosed matters that are still under investigation by joint public-private teams, stressing the company's assertions have not been confirmed at all. Let's look at that. I want you to see this right here. According to the ministry, the disclosed matters are still under investigation, stressing the company's assertions have not been confirmed. So Coupang has gone out, and what they have ended up doing is making statements saying, we're all good. We did our own investigation. It was exhaustive. Oh my gosh, it was. And we did it in crazy amount of time, and we're all good. But there's nothing to worry. All your information has been deleted. No damage whatsoever. So come back to the fold, because we're losing money when you leave. And if you're pissed off, we're going to lose market shares. And so we got to make it sound like we're doing everything in our power, and we're going to lie our asses off as if we are totally innocent and we're the victims. Seriously? That's how you're going to play it? That's how you're... Coupang, Kim, you're going... And here the government is saying these assertions have not been verified at all. Nope. Haven't been looked at by police or investigators for the government of Korea. Nope. But Coupang has done... This reminds me of the JFK, the assassination attempt in JFK, and that the magic bullet theory, 7 wounds and all this stuff, and then triangulation of fire, and from the book Suppository. Yeah, this is on the same level, except on an e-commerce battlefield. It stinks to high heaven. And the fact that Kim ends up saying that, yeah, I'm not going to talk, and here's a new CEO, he's the scapegoat, and he has leveraged himself and done things since this has come out and obviously been a problem. Now he's pulling out all the stops. He's apologizing. They're doing all this stuff and saying, everything's all good. He's removed himself and done legal things to limit the liability to him. So he's jockeying for position. He's like a rat caught in a trap. He's doing everything he can to get out and to move and the pieces on the board to make it look and minimize the amount of damage. He's crooked. That's all there is to it. This is an example of capitalism gone wrong. This isn't even capitalism. This is just pure evil. And treating people as if their data is your data is not worth anything. I know other people paid, $100, $200, $300 compensation per person for data leaks in the past, but we're going to give you a $3.50 coupon. But you got to buy something from us. You got to spend $1,000 to go on a vacation trip to get $14 coupon on that. You got to buy a high-end luxury item, which nobody really does a lot, but we're going to give you that $20,000 $14 coupon but you got to buy shit from us, and that's your compensation. It's all about the greed. It's about the money. That's what happens when greed overruns your entire life. And even now, the Korean government is considering, because usually the fine on this would be 1 to 3%. They're looking at upping that because of how egregious this is. It's just not good. Not good. And, with this, Coupang releasing this information saying we did our own investigation, everything is good, and blah, blah, blah. The guy who stole the information, he just deleted everything. We can trust him. You can trust somebody who stole 33, almost 34 million people's sensitive information and saying, no, I didn't do anything with it. No. I just deleted it all because you're a big Coupang, and I realized I was wrong. It was the first time. This reminds me of when you have those preachers, those TV preachers that get caught with a prostitute, a trans prostitute doing crack and meth and the whole 9 yards. It's like, oh, it's my first time. My bad. I don't know how I got here. I don't know why I'm bound up with ropes and a gag ball. I tripped and fell. It's like, no, that's not how this goes. That's not how this goes at all. But this goes into our next topic, because think about this. Here you have somebody that put out information publicly saying we're squeaky clean, despite the facts, and even the government says that none of this has been verified by us. So this next thing that we're going to talk about here in Korea is interesting because this might come into play with Coupang. I haven't seen anybody talk about this, but these things might go together, like peas and carrots, peanut butter and chocolate, Reese's, whatever. Fake news bill in insurrection tribunal yet cabinet nod, and that's the president. Lee Jae-myung speaks to the cabinet when he's presiding over this thing. South Korea cabinet has approved a promulgation of a bill aimed at combating fake news by allowing those targeted by false information online published to seek punitive damages up to 5 times the losses suffered. The cabinet greenlit the list of special tribunals dedicated to crimes related to the ex-president and the martial law thing. It talks about this, but these measures talking about blah, 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 blah. The fake news bill is set to take effect in July. So we'll see how this comes into play with Coupang. A revision of the Information and Communications Network Act was approved despite calls for the Lee to veto it during a cabinet meeting he convened. Hopefully this is a weird thing. According to the government, the bill allows punitive damages against media outlets and channels or individuals that spread false information for financial gain. See where we're going with this? Fake news. The exact outlet subject to this penalty would be determined by presidential decree and legislative work by the Korea Media and Communications Commission, a state media watchdog. The bill also toughens criminal punishment for defamation through false information. False information. Like the unverified information of Coupang, raising the maximum fine to 70 million won, which is about $50,000. That's not much for Coupang. From the previous 50 million won. The clause on the maximum jail term of 7 years will remain unchanged, so 7 years. The level of punishment for defamation by stating facts, up to 3-year prison term or 30 million won fine, will also remain intact despite Lee's instruction in November to remove the clause. Defamation by stating facts. That's going to be an interesting one because you can actually defame people here in Korea by stating facts and you can get charged with defamation. That is weird. Anyway, it ends up that all of this is going on, and people are saying that putting a muzzle on people's mouth by curbing freedom of expression or speech, this is kind of a huge thing. And, for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that how many times have we seen where people or whistleblowers in the United States have said, hey, this is what's going on, and they put it out there, and then people are saying, no, that's fake news, that's wrong. Under this law, those people could be fined, and sent to prison. But how many times in the United States and other countries around the world, and even in Korea, where we've seen things where it said, hey, this is what's going on. People are like, there's no way that could be happening. There's no way that Korean adoption has been a for-profit business, or babies were stolen from their families and, sent to be, given to adoptive parents in other countries for money. That would never happen. In that type of circumstance, the person who was blowing the whistle on that would get in trouble, pay a fine, go to prison, and then later on down the road, we find out, oh shit, that was true. The whistleblower. What is it? The Snowden thing. How he did that. That people are like, oh no, that, and then it actually came out to be true. And a number of whistleblowers, in the tobacco industry and so many other big companies and pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, all the things that we talked about. People saying, hey, this is what's really going on. Under this law, those people could be punished and fined and go to prison. What happens years down the road when this stuff is actually found out to be true? Are those people that were fined and imprisoned and basically canceled probably lose their jobs, might lose family members, retirement opportunities and so on and so forth? What happens to those people? Can they now sue the government for wrongful imprisonment and illegal fines because later that information turned out to be correct and it wasn't false information? Another article was talking about this, and it was saying that if you give false information, hate information disguised as opinion is going to be illegal. What? So who is the arbitrator? Who's going to decide what is hate and what is not? Is it the ruling political power that is in office? And if you hold the beliefs of a different political party, you're wrong. But then if that switches, then we're going to change it, and whoever's in power is going to be right automatically. And if you're the, whatever wrong side of the aisle that you're on, you could be fined and punished for putting this information out. That's problematic. Now, there are some things that are kind of interesting because with that, they gave some examples of like, I can't remember if it was a Korean guy or a Japanese guy. I think it was a Korean guy where he ended up saying that the bodies of, 20, 30 double-digit numbers of Japanese were buried in Korea. They're captured or whatever, and they were killed, and there was mass graves or whatever. And that was absolutely false. It was 100% false by some YouTuber. And that's like going into a theater and yelling fire or bomb. If it's not true, that's problematic. That's wrong. Should somebody be punished for that? Or misusing the 911 system, or making fake police calls and saying, hey, there's a robbery. You need to, this guy's going to be killing everybody. And then they SWAT his house and it ends up it was just a gamer. The people that called it in, yeah, they should be punished. But there needs to be a clear definition of what those things are. You can't just arbitrarily say hate speech disguised as opinion. Because who determines that it's hate? Is it based on political stance? Is it based on, well, I like you and I don't like you, and so now suddenly it's hate, but if he says it, it's not hate? You see what I'm saying? There's a very slippery slope and it's not clear. It's very gray. It's very ambiguous on how this bill would work. But in regards to the coupon thing, that is very interesting. Because putting out this information that is false, this could be something that could be used against Coupang. So we'll see what happens here. Terry pops in and says, hey, Steve. Hey, how's it going? Good. We're just about to close up the stream here. We're doing a lot of information out here, And so it's very problematic when you have a rule that's going to limit the freedom of speech and where you can categorize or be biased against people. And it just depends on who's in power and who's not. And again, we've seen it numerous times in the United States and other countries where you have whistleblowers who are saying, hey, this is what's going on. And then everybody's like, no, that's totally impossible. Serpico, oh, it's totally impossible. No, no police force would be corrupt. No politicians would be corrupt. No tobacco company wouldn't be corrupt and trying to, it's not an addictive thing. They don't put addictive chemicals in cigarettes, and it doesn't cause cancer. No, absolutely untrue. With this law, somebody who was the whistleblower in this could be fined and punished. But as we know, in all those instances, they were absolutely true. And it blew the lid off of some huge, huge cases in the United States. This gray nebulous law, the ambiguity of this law, if it comes into law, could be very problematic depending on who wields the power. And if they, we're going to silence our opponents, they could misuse that, and that would be a loss for the Korean people. I don't know. Maybe some of my information that I put out, like about Coupang, and some of the opinions that I have could be classified as hate speech, and I could be fined and punished. If you talk against the government and you do all these things, I mean, it could be a step in backward, not forward. Yeah. So it's a very interesting thing that we end up seeing here. Very, very interesting. But Coupang is, I think, is wrong as the day is long. That's my opinion. Until I find out otherwise. So with that being said, we have talked about a lot of things. We talked about dog meat. That's all going away by 2029. YouTuber talking about healthcare. He got some flack for that. But if you're over here in Korea and you're on a visa and you're paying into the national healthcare system, you're supporting the system and being a good, you're paying bills and rent and taxes and all that stuff. You're a productive member of society. But then there comes a time where you have too many immigrants that come in or want to come in that would be a drain and put national health care into the red than keeping it in the black because too much is being spent than going in. There needs to be some limits on that, I think. It's the Scalding Wife and the Korean guy who scalded his wife with a boiling pot of hot water that suddenly said, oh, it was an accident. I don't know how many times I have boiled a pot of water and then just gone over as my wife was sleeping on the couch or the bed and just how many times I've tripped and fell. Even if the wife wasn't sleeping on the couch or the bed, how many times I've accidentally spilled water, scalding hot water. Yeah, it's just not crazy. No adoptions by 2029, Korea. So that's coming up. We have the crazy coupon thing. And then we have this fake news thing that kind of culminates and ends up this live stream that we ended up doing. With that said, I appreciate all the likes and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't done that, please like and subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out, and I would appreciate that. It's all good if you could help me with that. It's just another hobby I have here, being retired in Korea, American expat, besides the 3D printing and painting miniatures and talking about Korea and hanging out with some cool people. I enjoy it. So the like to the channel and subscription would be great. With that, we're going to close up, but here it is. We'll do the outro. If you want to contact me, you can send me an email at officialtheveriglife@gmail.com. I answer every single email. You can ask Terry about it and some others. They send me emails on news and things that's going on around the world. People send me pictures of their pets. Smoking ribs and the whole 9 yards, 3D printing and miniatures and hobby stuff, world events, whatever it is. Or somebody just wants to say hi, or ask questions about how we retired in Korea. I would really appreciate that. If you want to buy me coffee, they're over here. They're over here. A bunch of people bought me coffee. You can do that as well, but I don't really need the coffee. I make my own. In case you know that. So the like and subscribe would be the very best thing that you could do for me. That would be the best thing. Coffee, every once in a while. But yeah, that's what we got going on. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and the stream, being able to share some of my life experiences as being an American expat here in Korea, and some of the news that goes on, and some of the wild stuff that goes on, the good stuff that goes on. And yeah, I don't regret retiring here or living in Korea. It's been good for us. So with that said, Hopefully, I mean, it's 31 December here, so it's New Year's. In the United States, I know it's the 30th, but if I don't see you again, have a good new Year. Be safe. Don't drink and drive or any of that stuff. We want you to be around for 2026. So, take a cab, a taxi, Uber, Lyft, whatever it is. Be safe, have fun, be responsible, and be a good person. Yeah, we need more good people like you. And I really like that. I like being around good people. So with that, we'll let you all go, and hopefully your new year will be blessed and good. Great things will happen next year. That's our hope. Hopefully that's everybody's hope, and we'll find out. So if you stay tuned, we'll see what happens, and yeah, we'll just take it from there and run with it. All right, that's it. We will see you on the next video. Take care. Peace. Coupang.